And just when you think things could not get worse for the Indiana Fever organization, things just got a hell of a lot worse. Because there's one, two congressmen, former players, everybody speaking about the current treatment of Caitlin Clark from their Pacific organization and the WNBA. Now, just like I told y'all yesterday, a few videos back, Stephen A. Smith gave us fair warning that this day was coming. Judgment Day for the WNBA over the treatment of Caitlin Clark. Now, no matter how they try to spin this, because they're definitely going to try to spin this and make it.
Katie Douglas didn't hold back. She stepped onto the national stage and voiced exactly what the Indiana Fever front office seemed too terrified to address. While the organization's leadership remained suspiciously quiet, a franchise legend finally broke her silence about the absolute chaos surrounding Caitlin Clark's rookie season. This was not just a casual interview, it was a calculated strike against the management that has arguably failed to protect its most valuable asset. The sense of betrayal is becoming impossible to ignore, and the fallout is only just beginning. Everyone expected the Fever to shield Clark from the storm, but the reality behind the scenes is much darker than the public realized.
Punched in the face by Alyssa Thomas in the last damn game. No matter what they try to say to spin this narrative, ain't no getting out of this. The Indiana Fever and the WNBA have a racism problem and a physicality problem within this league. And to me, it don't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. Let's dive into this. So former Indiana Fever player Kate Douglas went on Fox News and said this. She played for the Fever. WNBA.
The WNBA is currently facing its own version of Judgment Day, and no amount of public relations spin can hide the startling numbers. We are witnessing a level of targeted physicality that borders on the criminal, and the data proves it is not happening to every player equally. The overwhelming majority of flagrant fouls and high-impact collisions are being funneled toward one specific individual. Even when teammates like Lexi Hull get caught in the crossfire, literally getting punched in the face during a game, the league's response remains shockingly lethargic. This isn't just a tough brand of basketball anymore, it is a systemic failure within the Indiana Fever and the WNBA at large.
Threatening, saying that they're putting the league on notice. If the violent targeting continues unchecked, the league could face a DOJ or an EEOC crackdown for violating federal civil rights laws. Is that helpful, Katie? And why do you think this has gone on so long? Like, why does the league not protect her?
Yeah, I think it is helpful. I think anytime you have lawmakers now using their voice and using their platform, I think it is helpful just to bring continued awareness. What everybody is asking for, lawmakers, players, I think GMs, I think across the board.
When Katie Douglas spoke to the media, she didn't just represent her own opinion, she voiced the frustration of a massive, growing fan base. As a former Fever All-Star and a legend in her own right, Douglas knows exactly how a professional organization is supposed to function. What she is seeing now is completely unrecognizable to her. She openly confirmed that having lawmakers get involved is a necessary step because the internal leadership has effectively checked out. When the people running the team won't stand up for their players, external forces have to step in. It is a massive escalation that the WNBA leadership clearly never anticipated when the season began.
You know, I don't know that it's jealousy, but I do think that, she does have a target.
Yeah.
But I think that the league has to understand if that is the case, that they do have to do a better job of being consistent.
We got to go. We loved having you, and I think you've got some big celebrations coming up. You've got a family member about to get drafted to the MLB. Congrats.
Thank you.
Great to have you, Katie.
So that was Katie Douglas, this current situation with the WNBA. There's major problems coming their way. And the way this thing...
The Republican Study Committee has officially put the league on notice, and this is where things get legally precarious for Lynn Dunn and the Fever management. We are now talking about potential Department of Justice or EEOC crackdowns for violating federal civil rights laws. This has moved far beyond a sports debate on social media. It is a legitimate legal threat that could dismantle the league's current power structure. Katie Douglas explicitly stated that having these lawmakers use their platforms is helpful because it forces a level of accountability that the WNBA has been dodging for months. The silence from the top has finally been shattered by a former player.
Situation with the WNBA, there's major problems coming their way. And the way this thing is boiling over, President Trump is shaking his hands like this, waiting, because as soon as all of this, I believe, soccer and all this other stuff, this Iran stuff boils over, he's finna put the hammer down. Ain't no shaking it, ain't no line. He's about to put the hammer down on the WNBA. But wait, we have even more. There's even more clips from Congress people now speaking about the WNBA in the current juncture. Listen to Zach Nunn.
One of the most damning aspects of this situation is the inconsistency in officiating that Douglas highlighted. Every player and general manager is asking for the same thing, a fair whistle. But instead of finding consistency, the league has allowed a culture of anything goes when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Douglas admitted that while being an official is a tough job, they have to find a way to stop the egregious physicality. She noted that Clark clearly has a target on her back, and the league's refusal to acknowledge this target is essentially a green light for more violence. It is a dangerous game of chicken that the WNBA is currently losing.
Clips from Congress people now speaking about the WNBA in the current juncture. Listen to Zach Nunn, a congressman.
Added that Iowa has your back. Keep the faith, Caitlin. Now, as a lawmaker from her home state and a father of young girls, what inspired you to send this letter to the WNBA?
Well, Tiffany, I think this is one of the wonderful things about Caitlin's entire career, from playing high school basketball right here in the heart of the heartland to what she's done with the University of Iowa. She has broken every NCAA Division I record in scoring for both men and women. And moving on to the Fever, she has nearly doubled the sales for what the WNBA have achieved.
The betrayal feels even deeper when you consider the financial windfall Clark has brought to the league. She has nearly doubled the sales and viewership for the WNBA. Yet, she is being treated like an outsider by the very institution profiting from her fame. Congressman Zach Nunn pointed out that, as a father of young girls, he finds the treatment of Clark to be an affront to the sport. He mentioned her being gouged in the eye and punched in the throat as examples of what should never be allowed in a professional setting. The league has made billions off her name while doing a very poor job of ensuring her basic safety on the court.
Because Indiana Fever insider Dan Dockich had another representative on his channel. Let's listen to this clip.
What point does Kathy Engelbert's handling of this, or lack of handling of this, become a referendum on her leadership of the WNBA and whether that leadership should continue?
That's a great question. Dan, I think all she has to do is respond to the letter and make it an open letter and say, you know what, we're hearing you guys loud and clear. We appreciate your attention to, the league and what's happening on the court. We're going to take every action needed, whether it's with our
The numbers tell a story that the league office doesn't want to discuss. Clark has been the victim of 5 hard fouls that were only called or upgraded after the fact, with 3 of those occurring after the games were already over. This delayed justice is a slap in the face to the Indiana Fever roster. It suggests that the league is more interested in managing optics than in protecting the players in real time. Katie Douglas's decision to speak up now suggests that even the former greats of the game can no longer stay quiet about the blatant double standards being applied to the league's newest superstar.
That's what we're looking for. And that's why, we're stepping in, because we feel like the management and the ownership and the league is not taking the responsibility to protect every player. I mean, Caitlin Clark, she's the one that's been targeted. This is an easy one to say, hey, we're going to make sure we clean this up. But every player in the league needs to feel like they're going to be safe when they go out on the court, and there's not going to be some sort of personal vendetta taken out against one particular player or another. Right now, the Indiana Fever, I have a feeling they're feeling a little targeted. Good thing they.
So you on Dan Dock's channel, but one thing I will.
There is a growing sentiment that the Indiana Fever organization itself is feeling targeted. Yet, their public defense of Clark has been criticized as being too little, too late. When a former player like Douglas has to go on national news to advocate for player safety, it reflects poorly on the current coaching staff and management. The stink of the situation is becoming palpable, and insiders are starting to describe the atmosphere as spooky. If the management continues to allow their star player to be physically intimidated without a strong internal response, they risk losing the locker room and the trust of the fans forever. The involvement of Congress adds a layer of pressure that usually results in heads rolling at the executive level. Lawmakers are asking three basic questions. How are you dealing with violence on the court? How are you holding people accountable? And what are you doing about the threats occurring both online and off? These aren't just suggestions, they are demands for a formal response. The league's commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, is now facing a referendum on her leadership. If she cannot provide a safe environment for the players who are driving the league's growth, many are asking if her leadership should even continue. The narrative of jealousy within the league is something Douglas touched on with nuance, but the underlying tension is undeniable. While she hesitated to call it pure jealousy, she couldn't deny the target that exists. This target isn't just about being a good player, it feels personal. When a player is gouged in the eye or hit in the throat, it transcends the boundaries of competitive basketball and enters the realm of a personal vendetta. The fact that this is happening to the player who is single-handedly elevating the league's status is a paradox that the WNBA management seems completely unable to solve. Even the political world is starting to circle this controversy like sharks in the water. There are reports that even former President Trump is watching the situation closely, waiting for the right moment to weigh in on the WNBA's handling of its stars. When a sports controversy reaches the level of presidential interest, you know the organization has lost control of the narrative. The Indiana Fever are caught in the middle of a cultural and political firestorm, and their inability to act decisively is making them look weak. The hammer is about to drop, and it's going to hit the league office the hardest. The situation with Lexi Hull getting punched in the face was a turning point for many fans. It showed that the violence isn't just limited to Clark, but is a symptom of a league that has lost its grip on officiating. If a player can be struck in the face without immediate and severe consequences, then the rules of the game effectively don't exist. Katie Douglas highlighted that this lack of protection is why external voices are becoming so loud. People are tired of hearing excuses about how physical the league is supposed to be. There is a clear line between physical play and hostile targeting. The Indiana Fever insider, Dan Dakich, has also been sounding the alarm, bringing on representatives to discuss the legal ramifications. The consensus is that the WNBA needs to issue an open letter taking full responsibility for the current state of the game. They need to admit that they have heard the concerns of the fans and the lawmakers, and that they are going to fix the officiating. Ownership and management have a responsibility to protect every player. But when one player is clearly being singled out for abuse, that responsibility becomes an urgent crisis that requires more than just a brief press release. What makes Katie Douglas's commentary so impactful is her deep ties to the Indiana organization. She isn't an outsider looking in, she is part of the Fever's DNA. For her to suggest that the league needs to find a way to protect Clark is a massive indictment of the current regime. It implies that the old guard of the Fever sees the current management as failing in their primary duty. This internal rift between the legends of the past and the leaders of the present is creating a toxic environment that could have long-term consequences for the franchise's ability to attract and keep talent. The financial stakes have never been higher for the WNBA, which makes their current path even more confusing. They have a generational talent who has broken every NCAA record and is now breaking every viewership record in the professional ranks. Usually, a league would do everything in its power to protect that kind of asset. Instead, the WNBA seems to be leaning into the controversy, perhaps hoping that the drama will drive even more clicks. But Douglas and the lawmakers are warning that this strategy is short-sighted and dangerous. You can't build a sustainable league on the back of unchecked violence. Congressman Zach Nunn's letter to the WNBA wasn't just a request for information, it was a shot across the bow. He specifically noted how his daughters feel affronted when they watch Clark get violently fouled. This is the core of the problem for the league's brand. They are trying to market themselves as a family-friendly, empowering organization for young girls. Yet, the product on the court often looks like a series of unpunished assaults. If the league loses the parents of the next generation of fans, all the billion-dollar TV deals in the world won't be enough to save them from a slow and painful decline. The silence from Lynn Dunn has been particularly deafening for fans who expected the Fever's front office to be Clark's biggest advocates. While the coach has made some comments about the fouls being egregious, there hasn't been a forceful, organization-wide stand against the treatment of their star. This lack of a unified front is what Douglas seems to be addressing by using her own voice. She is filling the vacuum left by the current leadership. The betrayal isn't just about the fouls on the court, it's about the lack of support off the court when the world is watching the Fever get bullied. Officiating is often called the toughest job in sports. But Douglas was quick to point out that this is no excuse for the level of inconsistency we are seeing. When a flagrant foul is only called after the game is over, it does nothing to protect the player during the heat of the moment. It is a reactive system rather than a proactive one that the league needs to empower its officials to take control of the game before it spirals into violence. Right now, the message being sent to other players in the league is that they can take cheap shots at Caitlin Clark with very little fear of immediate repercussion. The idea of a personal vendetta against Clark was brought up during the discussions with lawmakers, and it's a phrase that should terrify the WNBA leadership. If the league is perceived as allowing personal grudges to dictate the flow of the game, they will lose all professional credibility. Fans want to see competitive basketball, not a targeted campaign against a single individual. Douglas's comments on the target suggest that this isn't just a theory, it's a reality that the players themselves recognize. The question remains, why is the league office the only group that refuses to see it? As the situation boils over, the pressure on Cathy Engelbert is reaching a breaking point. She is being asked to take ownership and responsibility for the safety of her players. If she refuses to write that open letter and acknowledge the problem, she may find herself being replaced by someone who will. The league is at a historic turning point, and the leadership's response to the Caitlin Clark situation will be their legacy. Will they be remembered as the people who ushered in a new era of prosperity, or the ones who allowed internal politics and jealousy to destroy a golden opportunity? The stink that insiders are referring to is the growing sense that the WNBA is becoming a hostile environment for its own growth. When you have Hall of Famers and congressmen joining forces to call out the league, you know the situation has reached a critical mass. Katie Douglas's Fox News appearance was a watershed moment because it validated the concerns of millions of fans who were being told they were overreacting. It turns out they weren't overreacting at all. They were seeing exactly what the former players were seeing. The truth is finally out, and it is not a good look for the league. The Indiana Fever organization now has a choice to make. They can continue to stay quiet and hope the controversy blows over, or they can finally stand up and demand the protection their players deserve. The involvement of the DOJ and the EEOC is a looming shadow that won't go away until real changes are made to how the game is officiated and how violence is punished. The fans have made it clear that they won't accept the status quo anymore. They want to see the best players in the world compete on a level playing field, free from the threat of being punched or gouged. The WNBA is at a crossroads that will define its existence for the next decade. They can either continue to allow this culture of hostility to fester, or they can listen to the legends like Katie Douglas who are screaming for change. The fans are watching, Congress is watching, and the players are feeling the physical consequences of this inaction every single night. If the Indiana Fever doesn't fix its internal culture and start protecting Caitlin Clark, they might find themselves winning the battle of egos, but losing the entire war for the league's future. The clock is ticking on their reputation.